Well, the dust is still settling from last night's provincial election, but there is still much to unpack. So joining us once again in the CTV Barrie studio is the chair of the District of Muskoka, Jeff Lehman. It was fantastic to have you on the desk last night.
It was great to be here. It was an exciting night.
It really
always
was.
is. Always
You mentioned something a few times,
Yeah.
Jeff, an anti-incumbency trend,
Yeah.
the idea of people returning for a third term being unheard of.
Yeah. Yeah, this is going on all over the world, and it was a real trend for the last 2 years. Governments were being thrown out, and a lot of the speculation was it was because they were the government during COVID and people were unhappy and they wanted to change. So it is very unusual to see a third term, and I think what we saw last night's result, maybe indicates the pendulum is starting to swing the other way. Maybe it's because of the uncertainty down south in the U.S. and otherwise, but I do think there's a real desire for stability now, and maybe that explains some of what we saw last night in the third term for the Ford government.
We've talked to you a lot about the history of politicians, whether it be federal. We're looking at Trudeau entering into his 11th year. Yeah. Even you yourself served 12 years as the mayor of Barrie, so that's 3 terms. So why is that maybe something that we haven't seen as much when it comes to the premier?
Yeah, it's true.
When was the last time this happened?
Well, really Bill Davis. And arguably it's never happened. 3 consecutive majorities hasn't happened. But there have been premiers who have won more than 3 elections and been in government for longer. But I think today the political cycle is shorter. People are quicker to make up their minds. Issues change faster. Information moves faster. And so that sort of political long wave that says, you know, a government has 8 to 12 years of shelf life, I would argue it's maybe starting to get shorter, and that's one of the reasons why last night's result was pretty unique, having that strong a mandate after 7 years.
Now, before the election was called, 6 of our MPPs were cabinet ministers. So what do you think that says about how the government looks at our region?
Yeah, well, and you're seeing Minister Dunlop on the screen. Look, this is very good for our region. We have, or had, a stronger representation in the provincial cabinet, in the last cabinet, than I can remember in my lifetime. And so having those ministers in a variety of portfolios, especially ones that are really relevant to our region, environment, education, natural resources, these are critical issues in Muskoka and Simcoe County. So that's very good. And I hope that continues because, of course, there will be a new cabinet named now that we're coming out of the election.
Okay. Finally, let's talk about the overwhelming victory. Do you think that now that that's happened, that the premier might consider a cabinet shuffle?
Yeah. Well, every new government brings a new cabinet, at least to some extent, because there are people who didn't run again. There are a few cabinet ministers who didn't run again this time. There are new people who were elected, and the premier may want them in the cabinet. For myself, you know, as a citizen of Central Ontario, somebody who cares a lot about Simcoe and Muskoka, I hope the premier names many of those people back to cabinet, and that we have as strong a representation. I do think it helps to have a voice around the cabinet table, but it also helps to have, you know, the minister on a relevant topic to come from your area, because they truly understand what's happening on the ground better than people from other areas.
There is still quite a bit more information that we could cover today, but if you are looking for more, you can always go to the CTV Barrie website for complete election coverage. It's ctvnews.ca/Barrie. Click on that election news icon and you can get results and reaction.